So this is Facebook, and despite popular belief, you might be shocked to find out that Facebook, as a social media platform and your self-proclaimed online nanny, actually doesn't owe you anything, especially not a guardrail from fraud. June 14th, 2026, and I'm sorry about your feelings, but this is the comic reporter, the original comic reporter, and we don't give about feelings on this channel. I hope everyone who is trickling into the follower list is enjoying the new theme song. I hope that's the chase. I hope that's the case. I actually made it myself. I did. You're going to be hearing a lot more of that over the next little bit, so settle in while I figure out exactly how to push this algorithm to its absolute limit. We're going to be picking up the pace here a little bit. Look, the reality of the global digital marketplace is that it contains hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of creators. And it also contains millions upon millions of people who have to steal in order to look like their creators. That's how it works. No market will humble you faster than the online marketplace of online attention. I've watched the prettiest girls do the most depraved things. They go from light speed to zero in literally 5 seconds flat, no matter how depraved it gets. And I've seen the ugliest dudes go from zero to light speed in about the same amount of time. The difference is talent. It's not that pretty girls can't be talented, it's that their looks actually do not matter beyond the first 5 minutes of their career. And when their 5 minutes are over, that's where the fraud begins. No, where is that more prevalent than social media, Facebook included? I use pretty girls as an example because they're the most obvious one and there's the most of them. Look, I'm not in the business of telling anyone what to like and what not to like. That's not my job. That's not my place. That's not my industry. That's not what comedy is about. I am not the CBC. I am not the Canadian government. I have no right to tell you that you need to draw a horse when all you want to draw is a whale. That's not my job. That's not what I want to do. I want you thinking, and the only way to get you thinking is to point out that there are 1 million different ways to spell fact. And whatever way you choose is fine as long as it's also flexible because there is only one way to spell fact that's actually accurate. So when I hear that Northern Perspective, among many, many other creators, are being targeted and used to get attention for online scams, my reaction is, yeah, yes, of course you are. And if you didn't see this coming, I don't know what to tell you. This specific channel, the original comic reporter, was shut down for a month because of exactly what Northern Perspective is going through. What these people stole and duplicated this content, and YouTube treated the creator, me, like the problem. That's how it works. When the culprit is based in a country that doesn't care about your country's rules, there is literally nothing the platform can do until law enforcement agrees to help. Attacking Facebook doesn't change anything. You can call customer support all you want. They can't do anything. And I'll tell you why. It's because it's not a Facebook problem. It's not a Facebook problem. But you know who does do something about it? The RCMP. Because that's who I talk to. And CSIS, because I also talk to them. Talk to CSIS and the RCMP because that's the only way to fix it. I'm sure everyone is surprised to hear that the massive social media platforms that have billions of users all over the world, including robots of the human and synthetic varieties, do not actually give a flying poop about the human beings that choose to use it as a marketing and reach engine. It doesn't care. Personally, I haven't used Meta for much of anything in a very long time. I don't have a Facebook page. I do have an Instagram page if you want to join that. It's in the links in this channel. And I also have a Telegram page that's easier for sharing and any videos that YouTube doesn't seem to particularly like. But I don't use Facebook. And one of the reasons is because Facebook is old and sloppy and just kind of seems to be floating towards the edge of a waterfall with how poorly its security is actually managed. I could explain that to you, but I think it'll come up as we go. I think you'll see the problem as we go. So a while ago, I made a very small video about how Bill C-22 that would allow Canadian authorities to easily access the metadata of places like Instagram and Facebook and X and all the massive social media platforms. And I said the reason that this bill from Gary Androgasi was such a bad idea was not really because of the surveillance stuff, although that's not good. The reason that bill is bad is because what you're doing is weakening the security around the global metadata in order to provide Canadian authorities easier access. And I understand why Canada wants that access. I do. Hunting fraudsters and impersonators and otherwise is near impossible thing to do because fraud in Canada actually originates from countries that don't really do all that much about fraud without massive pressure from the countries that do care about likeness rights and content ownership. They don't. Most of the countries that use these platforms for fraud are in countries that don't spend a whole lot of time trying to stop fraud, at least not on regular citizens. For instance, and this is just a for instance, I'm not picking on any particular country here. I'm just going to use one as an example because it's one we can all identify with. Nigeria doesn't really give a flying knuckle sandwich about Canadian security. They don't care. And the reason they don't care is that they don't really benefit from Canada being safe from the mechanizations of a fraud based system. In fact, they seem to benefit massively from it because a lot of the jobs that came from Africa based call centers is centered around crypto and content theft and misusing AI in ways that can make the country money. In order for a place like Facebook to fight that fraud, they would have to cut Nigeria itself off from Facebook altogether. In fact, if you listen to the episode where Northern Perspective is talking about this, the guy on the other end sounds like he has an African accent. His English is good, but there's clearly an accent involved there. And if you position the country that he's actually in, it could very well be a place like Nigeria. And in that exact same call center he's working out of, because it's not a Facebook call center, it's a general call center. In that exact same call center he's working in, there's probably a content farm doing the exact thing Northern Perspective is complaining about. They might be in the same building. That's the reality. So not only is there no incentive for the call center employee to do anything about it, there's no incentive for Facebook to do anything about it because they'd have to become the police in Nigeria. They'd have to force Nigeria to come down hard on fraud, which is a huge part of their economy. Again, I don't mean to pick on Nigeria. I actually love Nigerians in general. They're friends of the show. My grandparents spent a year and a half in Nigeria, and from what they told me, they met about 10,000 Nigerians, and only 5 of those Nigerians ever tried to actually shoot them. So that's, I mean, I know it's not a great ratio, but it's way better than most people want to believe. So yeah, not a bad place. It's got different standards. It's a different culture. It's a different legal focus. So when you get a platform like Facebook in Africa, and then you mix the two incentives in North Americans and Africans, what you end up with is a predatory marketplace where North Americans have to be aware of the business model of call centers that exist in a marketplace where fraud and impersonation is beneficial and encouraged. Again, nothing wrong with Africa as a country. It just isn't as dedicated to the rule of law as North America is, and it has different focus. That's all. That's all I'm saying. And that's what tends to lead to a pretty toxic relationship between our country and theirs when it comes to digital security, at least when it comes to business plans and regulation. It probably won't surprise you to find out that Facebook ads make Facebook a lot of money. And it doesn't really matter where in the world you are. You can create them and use them to advertise to just about anyone in the world at any time for just about anything. But because there are countries who really don't care about impersonation and fraud, some countries have a very large advantage when it comes to creating things like deepfakes and impersonating pretty girls for the purpose of extracting money from the overregulated markets of Canada and the US. And if those countries can do that, are you surprised that they can steal your logo and slap it on a Facebook account? Because you shouldn't be. You shouldn't be at all. And it's actually been like this for a long time, longer than anyone younger than me will ever actually realize. This is not new. Tinder and OkCupid and Hinge and all those silly dating sites that no one ever actually meets off of anymore have been carrying fraudulent profiles both knowingly and unknowingly for literally decades. Telegram and WhatsApp have been hotbeds for fraud and impersonation for as long as they've existed. And let's talk about the TOS agreement so many people put out there because I heard that a lot. Well, you're not following the TOS. The terms of service I agreed to say this is illegal. Yes, it is. That's right. The terms of service say what they are doing is not allowed on the platform in Canada. In Canada. Did you know that terms of service change country to country? Because I did. That's how we know most of these fraudsters aren't in Canada. Listen, one of the reasons Gary A wants to get access to the social media data is to make sure he can track the IP addresses of the fraudsters to the VPNs they use, thus eliminating the chance that the identity theft is actually originating in Canada, thus not wasting the RCMP's time in chasing down someone else in another country and moving the entire case to CSIS. That's why he wants that. Sounds perfectly reasonable when you put it that way, but what he doesn't need is a year's worth of data to do it. Look, the reason I got this channel back is that Southeast Asian scammers were using tiny YouTube channels to defraud people using AI generated images, and they connected themselves to my channel to steal its authority to do it. Now channel authority isn't necessarily the size of your following, it's how much YouTube trusts your channel. So I'm building that trust back up. And it's the exact same thing that's happening to Northern Perspective, just more obvious because they have more authority. But I got it back by making multiple reports to law enforcement, forcing YouTube to restore the channel when I ported impersonation. But YouTube wouldn't have done that without law enforcement being involved. That's how it works. RCMP, CSIS, and I also reported it directly to the SBU in Ukraine. That's how far I had to go for a 230 follower channel. So the reason Facebook doesn't care isn't because they actually don't care. It's because they literally, legally, cannot force another country to enforce rules it doesn't have. And to stop the scammers, you need the help of legal authorities. And if they won't help Facebook, then Facebook can either make money on the gap or they can cut the entire country out of the ecosystem. That's their choice. And if I was them, I can't say I wouldn't pick option number two. I would keep making money on the ads. That is literally the entire reason they make their home base in the States, because the States respects the laws of other countries, and Canada has been educated not to. That's the difference. If it happens to an American, it is literally their own problem. If it happens to a Canadian, well, that's a global event, and that's not how the world works. Well, when you have an issue with fraud on a platform, the platform might be responsible for the infrastructure it happened in, but it is not responsible for the problem. It's not responsible for the fraud itself. It can't be. The legal framework doesn't exist for Facebook to be held responsible for it. You could try to make them care, but they're not going to. The best the best idea, quite honestly, is to report the identity theft and fraud to the RCMP and CSIS. Like I said, Facebook will do nothing. It's not, you know what? I can't say that. That's not entirely true. Facebook is doing something. Actually, all social media is doing something. There is a movement in the background, from what I understand, from what I hear through the grapevine. I can't confirm this, but I've heard it from pretty reliable people. They're basically segregating social media by country because this whole cross-border communication thing between countries who care about law and order, and countries that don't care about the law just isn't working. I know the government thinks the fix is give us access to the metadata, but that's not the fix. The fix is quite literally global segregation. And if you want to participate in another country's Facebook, it would force you to sign up for their terms of service. Facebook Canada, Facebook Africa, Facebook US, Facebook. You have to sign up for every one of them individually, thus capturing you into the terms of service so that you have to adhere to the laws of that country if you're on their Facebook. Does that make sense? That removes the legal barrier. Enforcement is still complicated, but at least it's possible now. That's literally what has to happen. And just as for instance, and this is going to be controversial because everybody wants to go back to 1988 and say, well, China built the wall. China didn't eliminate North American social media because Facebook wouldn't follow its rules. Facebook pulled out of China, as an example. It would be before Facebook that this happened, but as an example, China didn't eliminate North American social media because Facebook wouldn't follow its rules. Facebook pulled out of China because China tried to make it follow rules it couldn't follow. China came up with its own social media to fill the gap. That's what happened. Again, all that happened before Facebook, but you see how this works. It's like China saw this coming. And that's going to start to happen everywhere because many countries aren't compatible with the terms of service that keep users safe. So you either get smarter users or you get a more constricted internet. That's how it works. That's how crime works. That's why you have laws, even on the ground. The only difference is now you're going to have laws that apply only to the digital space. And since not all users are created equal exactly, you end up with a restricted internet. That's regulation. Regulation rolls downhill and it takes the smart people with it. That's regulation, that's reality. And that's what Canadian creators are dealing with right now. It is what it is, and it will be what it is until someone comes up with something better than Bill C-22. So good luck out there. Sorry to break the illusion, sorry to break your heart, sorry about your feelings. Yeah. I don't like to do videos like this, but when I hear stuff that is so off base, don't report. You can report fraud to Facebook. You can report impersonation to Facebook. You can talk to social media about this until you're blue in the face. But until you report it to law enforcement, so the RCMP, which actually has a good relationship with the SBU, for example. Or you report it to CSIS. Nothing will ever happen. Your RCMPs cannot save you until the legal reports exist. Just being honest. Good luck out there, guys.